And if you want to have an impact and stay there, then it's up to you to create the opportunities and to bring the ideas forward. So in a way, the profession has maybe lagged behind, but on the other hand, I've seen really progressive, ambitious, smart people make their way when I didn't really think they would be able to.
Hello, this is John Bernanovich. I'm continuing my journey of writing my book, HR Like a Boss, and I am delighted to be joined by a friend and business owner colleague, Kristin Tull, the president of PRADCO. Many of you in our community know Kristin. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, John.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and kind of working through all these unique times as business owners and someone who works with the HR community. I'm really hopeful to get some unique insights from you as it relates to your perspective of this book I'm writing called HR Like a Boss, and doing HR awesome business leaders that are just so happen to practice in the field of human resources. So with that said, first things first, if you were to describe the purpose of human resources, Kristin, how would you do that?
So I think the primary purpose of human resources is to support all things people related to organizations. So whether it be hiring, developing, making sure people get paid, making sure people are engaged, sort of all things related to people and having them feel good and perform well in their companies.
How do you see your company or others defining success as it relates to the human resource field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good question, especially being more of a consultant than an HR person myself, but sort of playing one on TV many times as an extension of our clients. So we define success as partnering with HR leaders and being an extension of their team. So we tend to operate in the small to middle market space, and for us, if we can help, HR leaders hire better people, if it's helping them come up with development plans or succession planning. So normally they come to us with a problem, and then success for us would be defined as helping them solve it in a way that's meaningful, measurable, impactful, and sometimes that's a small thing, and sometimes that's a enterprise-wide thing.
So predominantly those problems that you're solving with your clients are we're not getting the right talent within our organization, or our interview process is not finding the right people for us, or you have talent within the organization or the client that you're working with, and maybe that person isn't developing quite at the pace that the employer or their manager is looking for. Is that a pretty accurate way to describe the problems that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I would say so. And then even more so in the last few years, more forward-thinking kind of problems, like how do we develop leaders proactively rather than, we have a guy over here who's not effective or who's struggling. It's much more positively oriented these days. So how do we help people get ready ahead of time instead of wait for them to stumble and then need to help fix them?
So do you in your role, is there any particular example either within your company or within a client to where you saw a profound impact from either a challenge or problem that came in through the need that the client had, and then all of a sudden through some of the work you did or the efforts they put in jointly that you saw a unique outcome?
That's kind of a hard question because we don't always know the outcomes of what we do, right? So as consultants, we're in and out sometimes, although more often than not, and if it's our choice, we want to be in for the long haul to see our impact. But lots of times, an HR person will bring us into a company for the first time. So maybe, they've had a bad hire, and so they decide to use us to evaluate candidates. And when we are able to show how a person will fit or how they won't, that can make a pretty profound impact on hiring practices over time. So it's kind of like introduce something, see really great results, and then that ends up being a win for us, but also for the HR leader in terms of getting a little bit better seat at the table. I also wanted to comment about the HR at the table thing, though, because that used to be more of a challenge. I find more and more now HR is at the table already. That's sort of an older challenge, and now they're at the table. It's a matter of impacting the leaders that they're with and figuring out how to sell their ideas. But to me, I in thinking about this ahead of this call, I was thinking about how that probably has shifted in many of the clients that we work with.
As it relates to characteristics, are there particular things that you've seen with clients that are in HR that stand out to you?
Yeah, so you put your finger on one of them, and that's being a business person first. So how do you partner with somebody rather than being the compliance person or the law person? Now, those things are important, but I think listening is important. Listening to understand a business partner's need, that's important rather than just coming with the one-size-fits-all solution. In my experience, the best HR leaders they might have some solutions in their back pocket, but they don't come to the table with it out of the gates. So being a listener, being a problem solver, being a partner, those are the things I think make a big difference, and not being a blocker.
Where I think companies have seen, when you get really good people and they believe in the mission and the purpose of the company, and you kind of join all that together, it just is easier, right? It's just easier to run the business, as opposed to always like saying, well, this is what the business needs, this is what you as an employee needs, and they're both different. We're just going to fight this thing out. It ends up becoming tiring for those that are ultimately responsible for the company well-being. So cool. Yeah, no, I agree. The seeking to understand shows that they are interested in the business and the people that they're representing. And that's not just HR functions, it's marketing, it's IT, it's supply chain, it's fill in the blank what the discipline is. So one of the key components of the book, actually the two key components of the book, are thinking differently and being different. So those are two of the main principles within it. Like, let's just not do this the same way we've always done it. You've earned the right to have the seat at the table. Now we have to earn the right to maybe have the chance to become promoted as a CEO or own your own company as you progress as a business leader. Is there anything from an advice standpoint or encouraging HR as to how they could think differently or be different?
But I guess in terms of thinking differently, it's taking that learner mindset like one step further. So asking questions, listening, but be willing to shift gears. So a lot of times people get wedded to whatever solution it is that they have in place. Well, even if that's, what we do, if we're brought in to solve something and then that gets solved, maybe something different is needed. So it's not natural for every person to start always wanting to evolve or iterate on good solutions that are getting good outcomes. But to me, that's something that would really set somebody apart if they're always looking for improvement, new ways of doing things, rather than just getting comfortable with, whatever they brought in the first place.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of that. Like complacency is a four-letter word in my mind, especially for business success. You just kind of sit there and comfortable with where you're at, and as soon as you know, you're getting passed by, and then you're kind of dated with where your principles and the foundation is. So yeah, I'm all for that. Mm-hmm. You had mentioned before in the personnel days and HR being a blocker. Is there any particular experiences or conversations you've had where either business colleagues or leaders have said, I really dislike working with human resources?
Fewer and more far between these days, I would definitely say. I think when HR leaders are viewed as more of just the administrative types or the type of people who aren't really open to implementing new things, they tend to get that stigma of not being progressive, not adding value, basically. But like I said, in my mind, and maybe it's partly the kinds of clients that we work with or companies that we interact with, they value HR related services more maybe than the ones who say, oh, we don't do that, we don't need that, we do our own coaching, or we don't need culture fit. And then it's interesting too, because you're asking about HR leaders, but in large part, I think it applies to any leader. Like if you want to get at the table, and if you want to have an impact and stay there, then it's up to you to create the opportunities and to bring the ideas forward. So in a way, the profession has maybe lagged behind, but on the other hand, I've seen really progressive, ambitious, smart people make their way when I didn't really think they would be able to. So it's been an interesting journey to see the evolution of things related to HR.
Yeah, no, I think it is a good point that you say, because companies that invest in assessments or coaching obviously see the importance of human resources and getting the most out of the people that they are working there and they're working with. And I can see that maybe some of them are progressive in that regard. Unfortunately, I am still seeing and hearing a number of companies that don't put a ton of value in it, or haven't. They say they've invested in HR, but when I talk to the HR generalist or manager there, who's one person in a company of 200 that can barely fit their time in the day to even go to the restroom or even have a bite to eat, right? To where they're just always on the go, driving. So it's kind of a tough equation. So it's still not perfect out there, and I don't think it ever will be. But I think, as you said before, if we can broaden it beyond even HR, where the people dynamic and success is going to make any department leader, any CEO, and any manager that much more successful. So, well, I'll get you out here on this, Kristin. You provide some really great insight. I appreciate it. So if you had the chance to describe someone that does HR like a boss, how would you do that?
I would say they're practical, solutions oriented, and I think easy to do business with. Those would be my three.
Perfect. Well, you're awesome. Thank you for making this easy and for volunteering to be a part of it. And I really appreciate you taking the time and the relationship we have and our companies have. So this is John Bernanovich. I'm signing off for now. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, John.
Take care. Thank you for checking out today's video episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, as well as share with a friend. And until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.